So Anne said, I'd like to learn more about Facebook and Twitter. I have a Facebook account, but do not use it that much. I use accounts for personal use and manage or administrate several other accounts. Okay. Anything specific to keeping your personal social media identity and your professional social media identity separate? If you guys have questions along the way, feel free to type them into the chat or just interrupt Jamie or I as we go. We want this to be informal. Don't hesitate to just unmute yourselves and start chatting with us here this morning. So I'll give a little bit of, well, let me introduce myself first because I don't know if everybody knows Jamie or I, so we'll introduce ourselves first. I'm Danae Wolf. I am an ed tech specialist with Ohio State University Extension, and my primary role is to help our extension staff integrate technology into the work that they're doing. So I'm here as a resource person. I do individual coaching, but we also offer public programs. Jamie and I tend to have a pretty big presence at annual conference, which we're diligently planning for now. And I'll let Jamie go ahead and introduce herself before we really get started.
So I direct
Welcome to Zoom Education. Today I'm going to be showing you how to access your video and audio settings within Zoom. So
someone's watching a video. If you can go ahead and mute yourself while you're watching it, that would be great because we can all hear it. There we go. So I direct our EdTech unit here at Ohio State University Extension, our massive unit of Danae and I. And I also give leadership to the nationwide E-Extension EdTech Learning Network, and that is half of my time. So that's what I do.
All right, so the reason why Jamie and I wanted to do this session and what really sparked my interest in doing this session is for those of you who may have had the opportunity to attend Innovate in May. Innovate was the big university-wide innovation in education event that took place the day prior to our Innovate Extension event that Jamie and I hosted on May 12th. The keynote speaker that day was a woman by the name of Bonnie Stewart, and Bonnie spoke primarily about social media use in education and how much social media has done for students to network with people around the globe. Social media has really just exploded opportunities for people to network with other people who are interested in the same types of topics. After her keynote session, she had a Q&A session that we could stick around for and ask questions. And somebody asked about the separation of personal social media identities and professional identities, and should you separate those two, and sort of her thoughts on that. And Bonnie asked the question, when you go to a conference, do you just hold up your most recent journal article in front of your face the whole time and only present yourself as this professional who has published in the past or who's done research in the past? And the answer to that is usually no. When we come to work, when we go to work conferences, we tend to talk about our personal lives. We may talk about work quite a bit, but if you go to your county office, you'll talk about your family, you'll talk about your kids, your vacation, how your weekend was, what movies you've seen recently. So there isn't a clear separation of personal identity and professional identity in real life. So why does everybody feel like there needs to be this clear separation on your online life, your social media life? And that really got me thinking, because prior to her saying that, everybody I'd ever spoken to said, well, yes, it's so important that you keep your social media identities completely separate. You have your work identity for your work life, and you have your personal identity for your personal life and your friends and family. So that was the first time that somebody kind of challenged that and said, well, is it really necessary, or can you blend the two together? Somebody's saying that the service is currently busy. Marsha, are you having trouble connecting, Marsha, or can you hear us and see us?
She said she doesn't have a camera or a microphone on her desktop. So, Marsha, I think you'll just need to, yeah, I'm not sure why you can't connect through your laptop. You can use the chat box if you want to. If you need to just use your desktop, that's fine.
Mm-hmm. As long as you can hear us, yeah, you can use the chat box to ask questions, and if you keep having trouble, just let us know. We'll try and troubleshoot that. So how we've organized today's program is I want to talk about a couple different scenarios that a lot of professionals might experience in terms of social media and online presence. So I'm going to start by kind of covering those different categories and discussing some things that you need to consider if you fall into one of those categories. And then we're going to share some examples of people that Jamie and I work with that are doing a really good job, either separating social media or blending it for whatever purposes they feel are necessary. So the first category that I'm going to talk about is, and this is sort of a hard one because people have such polarized opinions in some cases on this, is should you be friends with work colleagues on your personal social media account? So I use Facebook primarily as my personal social media account. I've had Facebook. I just got the notification a couple weeks ago for 11 years. I just celebrated my 11th year anniversary on Facebook, which seems like such a huge part of my life. Facebook is the platform that I use to reach out to friends and family. It's where I post a ton of photos of my kid and pets and, personal things. So as you start to get requests from folks that say, hey, I want to be friends with you, and it happens to be your supervisor or another work colleague, what do you do? So I'd like to open this up just for a very quick conversation. You can type into the chat box, or you can just open up your audio and let us know.
Way later on, and then I can just pull it up and send it. Then a scan copy's okay, when it's late.
We can hear someone talking. If you can mute your audio, if you're not talking, that would be great.
So Florian is saying he's having trouble hearing us.
Yeah, I'm going to put in the chat box to have him check his speakers.
In the meantime, what would you guys do? Are you friends with people? Are you friends with work colleagues on your personal social media accounts? How do you handle that? Do you keep it completely separate and you're not friends with people? Is anybody friends with their supervisor or superior on Facebook? I'm friends with Jamie. Jamie's my supervisor. So Julie said no.
Marsha. I did get connected. I don't know what was holding me up. I have the video and audio and microphone and everything. But awesome. Yes, I am friends, like personally and professionally sometimes, and that's why this topic intrigued me. I wanted to know, is that good or is that bad, or if there's some kind of protocol that we should think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll discuss some of the things that you need to consider as you kind of navigate through that. And I do hear some microphone feedback. I'm looking for who it might be coming from.
Seems like.
I'm going to, as I see people unmuted and not talking, I'm going to mute you. So if you try to talk and you are muted, go back down to the bottom of your screen. And if you're trying to talk, make sure that you are unmuted. We're just trying to reduce feedback as much as possible. So Kirsten says I have 2 Facebook accounts, one for personal, one for work. Try to keep one for work colleagues on the professional page unless we're friends prior to my start with extension. So that, again, comes down to that question of do you have a completely separate account for work? So here's my thoughts on that. I am friends with a lot of work colleagues on my personal social media account, and I've never had a problem with this way of working. I'm friends with my work colleagues not for work-related purposes. We don't use Facebook as a way of talking about work-related things. We have other avenues for that. Jamie and I use Slack and email. With most colleagues, we end up using email because that's just how we operate typically. But I'm friends with work colleagues on Facebook because I like to learn about them, their hobbies, their families. And I've told Jamie this before, it allows me to sort of see a whole picture of a person. I know Jamie now, not just as my supervisor, not just as the director of our ed tech unit, but I know her as a mom and a wife and, what she likes to do outside of work. And that's a really beautiful thing, in my opinion, because you learn about these people and you don't just see them as this, this work colleague who only does extension work or university work. So to me, that's a really great thing. We start to run into problems, though, as different people have different usages for social media. Some people like to use social media to post really polarized political opinions or religious opinions. Some people use it to post some really nasty stuff or inappropriate stuff. They might share information, news articles, or comment on news articles. Some of those comments might be what other people would consider controversial or inappropriate. So you can learn a lot about your colleagues and their interest if you're friends with them on Facebook, depending on how they are using Facebook. And that may or may not be a good thing. In fact, I was friends with somebody from OSU Extension on Facebook, and I learned a little bit about them, some things that I didn't like. And I'm still friends with that person on Facebook, but I no longer follow them. So I no longer get their updates in my news feed because I was so uncomfortable with what I was seeing. I was like, I just don't want to see it anymore, but I don't want to offend them by unfriending them or blocking them. So I'll just not follow them and I'll ignore what they say on Facebook. So that's something that you have to be aware of. If you are going to be friends with work colleagues on Facebook, you might not know this, and this is always really good information to share and remember. Facebook has what they call these complex algorithms for how it feeds you content into your newsfeed. You may have seen this before, especially as it relates to Facebook pages. Florian asked if this is being recorded. Yes, we are recording this, and we'll post it on the EdTech blog and probably YouTube as well. So we'll get that link out to everybody afterwards. Sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought. Facebook.
Newsfeed algorithms.
Newsfeed algorithms, thank you. So you may have noticed, let's say you have a Facebook page for the extension work that you do, and you have 200 followers. But every time you post something, you may only get 1 or 2 likes on that content. If people are not regularly interacting with your content, they're going to see less and less of that content show up in their newsfeed. If you do not regularly interact with certain people that you're friends with on Facebook, you will see less and less of that person's content show up in your newsfeed. Facebook is basically assuming you've never liked their status updates, you've never commented on their photos. Are you really friends with this person? We don't know. We're not going to show you a lot of their content unless you start interacting with them. So there's people that I'm friends with on Facebook that I'm like, man, I haven't seen that person's content show up in ages. And I go to their profile, and here they've been posting all kinds of stuff. But because I don't interact with it, I'm not seeing it show up in my newsfeed. In the same way, Facebook will feed your friends content that you interact with, even if that content is in no way connected to your friend. So an example of this is I like a lot of different news organizations on my Facebook account, like the Today Show. Let's say I see an article that the Today Show posts on Facebook, and I make a comment on it. Jamie, let's say she does not like the Today Show. She doesn't follow the Today Show on Facebook. Facebook might feed her the fact that I commented on this article on the Today Show. Even though she doesn't like the Today Show, she's seeing that I commented on that article. So if you make the mistake of posting something really inappropriate or really biased on a news article, thinking, well, what are the chances of my friends ever seeing that? Chances are actually really good because Facebook is seeing that and they're going to feed that directly to your friends. So that's the case of the OSU employee that I mentioned that I was friends with. I was actually seeing comments like that show up on articles that they were commenting on. I in no way was connected to those articles or the pages that those articles were coming from, but I was still seeing them pop up in my newsfeed. Also, one thing that I've noticed happening recently on Facebook, I don't know how recent of a change this is, if let's say that same article on the Today Show that I commented on, there might be 500,000 other comments show up. If Jamie sees that content show up and she clicks on the comment thread, my comment, because I'm friends with her, is going to go to the very top. If other friends of Jamie's have also liked that content, all of her friends' comments are going to show up at the very top. So she's not going to have to sift through 500,000 comments to see what I said. It's going to show up very conveniently at the very top of the article for her. So you really have to be careful with the type of content that you're interacting with if you're friends with work colleagues or even family members who might be sensitive to certain topics. It's something to consider. There are no hard, fast rules for the separation of personal and professional social media identities. OSU doesn't come forth and say you have to do this or you have to do that. We do have some guidelines in place. Most of those guidelines relate to how we use social media on a professional level. So how you represent OSU on an official OSU page or account. But we don't have a lot of good examples of sort of that blend. So what I would like to ask now is, has anybody experienced sort of a negative story or maybe a really positive story about this blending of social media where you're friends with your work colleagues for friend reasons, not for professional reasons? Jamie just posted our CFAES social media guidelines. If you haven't seen those, I highly recommend you check them out. just so you kind of know. The college is in the process of rolling out a new social media strategy. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like just yet, but it'll probably take, my guess is probably a year or two to really be rolled out in its full form. But those guidelines, again, don't really relate to your personal identity on social media and how that affects your work life. So any stories that anybody wants to unmute and share with us? Any examples of how you've seen social media go awry when you're friends with your work colleagues and say something really inappropriate?
I'll share an example. I had the same thing happen with friending a colleague. I won't say like a close coworker, but a colleague. And I saw things that this person was posting on a regular basis, not even just interacting with pages and people that I don't follow, and then me seeing them in my newsfeed, but directly sharing them out and posting them to her page. And it did make me super uncomfortable. And so I hid her posts too. But you have a completely different view of that person, and you can have a much different working relationship with that person based on what they're sharing out on social media. So it really is important to remember to censor yourself, I guess.
Yeah, and then the alternative to that is if you can't censor yourself, if you don't want to censor yourself, just don't be friends with work colleagues. Then censor your friends list. So that's our biggest piece of advice is if you want to use Facebook to post, your political opinions and other opinions that might be conceived as controversial by some people, then just don't be friends with your work colleagues. And don't feel bad about that. Like, that's a personal choice that you get to make. And yeah, Morgan said her hard, fast rule is that if I won't post it, if I don't want my grandmother to see it. I've heard quite a few people say stuff like that too. They only post what is appropriate. Most of the colleagues that I'm friends with on Facebook, they are totally appropriate. And they're posting, super innocent family photos and vacation, photos, and just great stuff that really allows you to see them as a whole person. Occasionally, though, you will get that person who just kind of goes overboard and you're like, I did not want to know that. So that is scenario number one. Are there any questions or comments that you guys would like to share about being friends with your work colleagues on a personal social media account?
Yeah,
I had one question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
This is Marcia. I know how to unfriend someone where you totally kind of sever ties. How do you said you cannot follow someone, so you could still maybe have access or check them if you wanted to, but they're not showing up. How do you not follow someone?
I'm going to share my screen and I will show you. So Jamie, I'm going to use you as an example. I'm not going to unfollow you.
Oh, I see how it is.
So I always tell people when I'm sharing my Facebook screen in front of an audience, I am not responsible for anything that you see show up in my newsfeed. I'm responsible for what I post and what I post only. So this is my Facebook newsfeed. If I'm looking for, let's say I want to look to unfollow Jamie because she posts something, I'm like, I don't want to see her show up in my newsfeed anymore. I'm going to go to Jamie's profile. And you'll see there's a couple different options that show up on her cover photo right here. I can see that I'm friends with her. I can choose to unfriend her. That's this last option. I can choose that she's going to be in my close friends list. So I'm going to get notified every time she posts something. I'm also going to choose over here where it says following. You'll see there's an option here at the bottom that says unfollow Jamie. So you have a couple different options. You can choose default, which you're going to see all the posts as usual. You can see first. So all of her new posts are going to show up at the top of my news feed, or I can just unfollow her altogether. I'm still friends with Jamie if I do this. I can still go to her personal profile and see everything that she posts, as long as her privacy settings allow for that. But I am not going to see her stuff show up in my news feed.
Got it.
So I've done that with quite a few people. I had some high school friends, for example, this one kid was posting, I counted several days, like 20 to 25 status updates per day. And I was like, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it. So I finally just unfollowed him. I'm still friends with him. But I never see him anymore. So I'm going to stop the share. If you guys have questions like that, please just let Jamie right now. We can help you with some of those technical things as well.
And I believe you don't necessarily have to go to someone's actual timeline or page to do that either. If if you're scrolling through your news feed and you see the post and you're like, okay, I don't want to see this anymore. I think there's a little, drop down in the very corner of that post, and then you can choose to unfollow there too. I think it gives you prompts like, I don't want to see this anymore, or something along those lines. So
yeah, you're right, Jamie. There is a little arrow that you can choose. You can hide that individual post if you don't want to see it, or you can choose to unfollow that person directly from that post.
But either way,
a really good point. All right, so any other questions about that, being friends with your work colleagues on social media? I have two more scenarios that I'm going to cover, and then we'll just talk generally about some other brand identity stuff. Jamie's going to share some really good examples of how people are balancing their identities.
Do you want me to go ahead and share Kathy Ann Kress's Twitter account now while this is fresh in everyone's minds? Okay, so we were trying to find examples of extension colleagues that are doing a great job in each of these categories that Danae's going over. And one of the good examples that I have, and I'm going to share my screen here in a second after I get Kathy Ann's, is Kathy Ann Kress, who is Iowa's director. And she does a great job on Twitter with knowing who the audience is that she wants to reach out to. And that is her colleagues. It's the people that she directs in the state and interacting with them. So let me share my screen here. Okay, so you should all now be seeing Kathy Ann's Twitter feed here. And she does a great job in keeping her posts and her content that she tweets out directed towards that audience of the people that she works with. And you can see that here on her timeline. If you're on Twitter, I highly suggest following her just to stay up to date on everything that's going on in Iowa and Extension, because she does an amazing job with sharing that out. So you'll see she likes to be out and about around the state constantly. She does a great job of that, and she likes to promote the work that everyone is doing in the state. So she frequently will attend events, like extension events, take pictures, share that out, tag the people if they're on Twitter, so that they see that she was tweeting about them, and help their audience see that too. But she has a definite group of folks online that she interacts with, and that is mainly her coworkers. And I very rarely will see her post something that's on a personal level, like family pictures or a vacation she's taking, or a non-work trip. So it's very work focused. And like Danae said, there's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just what your preference is. And for Kathy Ann, her preference is definitely, I just need to be sharing out, the work that we're doing in Iowa, and promoting the work that my colleagues and coworkers are doing, and her staff is doing. So she does a really great job also of always including the hashtags that need to be included, so that they can aggregate and curate Twitter lists with that kind of content. And yeah, I just wanted to share that because I think she does a great job of focusing on her colleagues and knowing what they're going to want to see. And sometimes, like Danae said, it does include having a little bit of personality with it too. And I think Kathy Ann does that. She does that pretty well, but I think she could share a little bit more about her life than she does. But her focus is just on Iowa State University Extension. So, okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen, and Danae can move on to the next topic.
Thank you, Jamie. So category number 2 that I wanted to cover is what happens when you have your personal social media account, let's say your personal Facebook account, and you start to have clients want to friend you or follow you on your personal social media account and use that as a means of reaching you for work-related reasons. I feel like this tends to happen in our 4-H program area. We have like 4-H parents and maybe even youth try and track down their educator and then send them private messages or post on their wall, hey, I need this form. Hey, when is this due? And this is when my personal recommendation would be to create another social media avenue, a professional social media avenue for those people to reach you. Because this really starts to separate just being friends with your work colleagues for work or for personal reasons, and being friends with clients who want work-related information from you on your personal accounts. Again, it's it's a very personal decision that you have to make. If that doesn't bother you, then you could continue to let that happen. But just know that if word gets out that, hey, you can just be friends with that educator on Facebook and send them messages on their personal account, it could start growing and growing. And if you don't want that to happen, you need to stop it as early as possible. So what I would recommend for this is a couple different things. You can just let those people know, don't contact me through my personal Facebook account. Either contact us through our Facebook page if you have a page. Contact me via email if that's what you would prefer. Or you might consider setting up a Facebook group. Does anybody in here use Facebook groups for particular client audiences that you are working with? A couple people said yes. Facebook.
An example of this is when I used to direct our county 4-H food and fashion board, we had a Facebook group page, and all of the members of the food and fashion board were members of that page. And that was our main line of communication. Mm-hmm. If we had a meeting coming up or an event or anything that I needed to update the youth on, that's where that information went. So that's an example of what a group page might be used for. And you can set it up to be private, invite only, and that's how ours was set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, groups are really nice when you have sort of a very particular audience. So like we had one in Summit County when I was the Master Gardener Volunteer Coordinator. We had one just for our Summit County Master Gardener volunteers. And it was a closed group. The category was closed. So Julie, I'll get to your question in just a second. It was a closed group, meaning people had to request access or be specifically invited. And if they were not a Summit County Master Gardener volunteer, then we would not accept them into that group. It was only for current volunteers or volunteers in training. You can also create a completely secret group that is not even searchable. People cannot even find it. I don't know why you would create that for reasons in extension, but you might have another reason to create a secret group. And then you can have a completely open group too, that anybody can join, anybody can leave at any time. They don't have to be approved membership. So Julie asked, from the group page, can somebody still see your personal profile? This is another really great reason why I highly recommend groups, is because people will be able to see your information. There's certain information that defaults to public that you can't change. That includes your profile picture, I think your cover photo, and then some basic information about you that shows up in like your intro now. Facebook just introduced your intro not that long ago, maybe a year ago or so. And it includes some basic work information, your spouse, if you've chosen to include your spouse, some other information. They're not going to be able, those people in your group are not going to be able to see any information other than what's default public information unless they are friends with you. So they're not going to be able to go to your page and see all of your posts unless the privacy settings on your post are public. And most people have defaulted their privacy settings to only allow friends to see their content, which is what I would recommend. So yeah, groups can be a really, really great option for just that groups of people that are sort of pre-formed groups of clients. If you're looking for a way to like market information to the public, like sort of mass marketing, groups probably aren't your best route, but you could still use them. You could just create an open group that anybody can be a member of and join in the discussion. So Jamie said that she's used them for different reasons. We have a couple other people who are using them. I would highly, highly recommend checking them out for some of those built-in client audiences that you have. Otherwise, if you don't want your clients to be reaching you via social media, because it's one more thing to manage, and you know that you're not going to be able to handle that and get on social media and respond to people's needs, because social media, it moves fast. People expect quick responses, and that's only getting worse. That's not getting any better. Like if people post a comment or a question on your social media account, people expect an answer same day. Maybe
and actually, sorry to interrupt, Danae. Actually, if you have a Facebook page, you may have noticed that Facebook now has on your page, when people go there, it will say how what the response rate is time-wise. So if someone posts, a comment on your page and you don't respond back, and that's the only comment you have on your page so far, the response rate will show as 0. And so you have to, try to stay on top of that so that people don't go to your page and be like, oh, well, no one's really checking what I'm posting here, so I'm not going to interact with this page.
Yeah, and always check your message inbox. If you have a Facebook page and you've allowed people to send you private messages via that page, that is an option that you can shut off. make sure that you're checking that inbox, because we had that happen again when I was in Summit County. Our public page, people were sending us messages, and the administrators in charge of those pages were not checking them. So we'd go in like a week later and somebody wrote last week, hey, when does the program start tomorrow morning? A week later, that's not very helpful. So make sure that you are dedicating that time to responding back to people. And again, if you don't have that time, then change those settings so that people can't contact you via those methods. And if you have questions about that, Jamie or I could definitely help you out. So any questions about now, we sort of switched from being friends with your work colleagues to being friends with clients for work reasons. Any questions or comments that you guys want to share about that?
Yeah, any experiences with having a lot of clients that are also your Facebook friends, like with your personal profiles? Is there anyone that has a lot of clients that you're friends with online, or do you try to filter those out and just stick with the professional pages and stuff to interact with your clients?
This is Erin Daly. I have a lot of friends on Facebook that are both, personal, or that are professional colleagues, as well as, a lot of clients, because a lot of, being in a small community, a lot of your clients are also your friends in outside of work too. So I'm just always, I still post pictures of family and those kind of things, but I'm always just careful to not ever, not post political or anything that, would be, that anybody might think was offensive, or try to, kind of leave just, and I will post, occasionally we'll post work things on there, because sometimes I'll get people, I'll link it to our OSU page, post things on our OSU page, and then post that on my personal page to link it back to it, to try to link to it. But it is really hard, especially in small communities, to really keep that separate when, a lot of your kids' friends' parents and things are also your 4-H parents.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Work pretty well.
Now, are those people using your personal Facebook account to interact with you for work-related reasons, or do they respect that sort of separation?
Unfortunately, they do that on occasion. I mean, they do use my personal page a lot. As they'll send a message on there. There are certain people that may send messages, and I try to, if it's something quick I can answer, I'll answer it. And it just saves time for me later to answer it quick. But if it's something that I'll just say, well, I don't know, call me at the office on whatever day. And most people are pretty respectful of that they don't, we get some, but it's not, it's not a huge amount that I get through Facebook.
Yeah, I think as you start to get more of those personal clients that start to want to use your personal social media accounts, that's when you need to start to make some decisions about if you're going to try and separate that out or not. So Jamie, did you have any examples that you wanted to share sort of in this regard?
Yes, I do. So let me share my screen again. I have a couple examples for this one. And like Danae said, I'm not responsible for what shows up on my newsfeed. Okay, so the first example I wanted to share is Hunter McBrayer. He's from Alabama Extension. And it's pretty apparent with Hunter that his main audience on Facebook are his clients, because most of what I see from him, almost every single post from him, is directed towards clientele. So I have this workshop coming up, I have this event coming up, or I'm at a workshop or an event and here's what's going on, or he'll post pictures and a recap from stuff. So you'll see there's a managing wild pig workshop, which we don't usually have in Ohio, but obviously they need it down in Alabama. So he's always posting stuff that's directed towards clientele. So he has a lot of Facebook friends that are clientele. I also know that he has coworkers that are friends, because I'm friends with him too on Facebook, because we've done some work together. But almost everything he posts is directed towards his clients. And so that's an example of someone who is really using their personal Facebook space to market and promote and engage with their clientele. Now, even though Hunter posts a lot of stuff geared towards clients. A lot of the people that interact with those posts are his coworkers. So he has some engagement with his clientele, but I'm wondering if he has like more of an audience with them in a different space, like maybe via email or newsletters or something like that too. Because the engagement tends to be more on colleagues and coworkers than his clientele. So I wanted to also share Paul Hill's Facebook page with you, because Paul is an example of someone who also will share a lot of information directed towards clients and youth, because he's a 4-H agent in Utah. But he gets a ton of engagement out of posting information online. So he just recently was posting information about their robotics, Lego Robotics League. And he's having a leader training coming up. And so he wanted to get that information out to the volunteers and adults in his county, see if he could get people to sign up. And you can see he's got a lot of interaction on here. And that happens every time he posts stuff on his Facebook page that's for his clientele and for youth in his county, because he has a lot of friends on his personal page that are his clients and his 4-H participants. So that's another example of someone that's using their personal online space on Facebook, but most of what they're sharing is geared towards those clients. And he gets a lot of engagement from his clients from sharing stuff online on Facebook. And then the final example that I wanted to share is Mark Light here in Ohio. Because I think he does a great job of also using his personal page to share information out towards, directed towards clients. He usually, if he has information to share with coworkers and colleagues, you'll see him typically post that on the 4-H professionals group page instead of posting it out. And so that's another good example of why you would rather have, might rather have a group rather than have stuff that you're sharing out on your personal page, or even a professional page. So he does a really good job of sharing out event information and things like that, and engaging with his clients that way. So that's any questions about that? Are there any other folks like here in Ohio or otherwise that you think are doing a good job of just directing most of their information that they're sharing out to their clients, or using their personal page specifically to engage with clients? And I can't see the chat box, so if there's anything in the chat box, let me know, Danae. I was trying to see if I could find another example on Paul's here, where he had posted something, and he had tons of questions, and it was all from clientele, like, how can I get involved in this? I think it might be way further down, and I'm not going to get to it. But he had posted something about a 3D printing camp that was for adults that he did over the summer. And he just kind of put a post out there saying, hey, would anyone be interested in this? Because I've had a couple requests, and tell me who wants to do it. And he had such a good response on his Facebook page, just sharing that out, that he ended up having a camp and hosting it, and he had quite a bit of people there. So that's just another example of using your personal page to engage with the clients and having some good results. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen here.
Okay, we did have one question from Marcia about how to delete a group after the group has finished. And I'm an administrator for one group, and I'm currently trying to figure out how I would delete it if I wanted to delete it. And there's a way to delete it. I just cannot figure out. I might have to search for that and find a Facebook tutorial or Facebook help article for that, unless Jamie, you know how off the top of your head.
Not off the top of my head. I've never had to do that before, though. That's why I've never.
I'm in a group that's not really active anymore, and I didn't know if you just leave it up there, or if you courtesy, you would delete it. And it was kind of a 1-year project group, and they used the group page, to communicate and share information, and there's not that need anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going through my group settings right now for the page or the group that I manage, and I am not finding a way
They actually say
to
done,
just
finished.
delete it. There's got to be a way. I'm not finding it right off the top of my head. So I will look that up, and I will let you know. Yeah, that's weird that I can't find it. Okay, so we have one more scenario that I'm going to go through, and then we'll kind of move on to some other hints and tips that we'll give you. So the last scenario is, let's say you want to use social media as a primary way of reaching to other extension professionals or people within the university system just for networking purposes. So you want to use social media to network with people, learn about the types of projects and programs that they're doing. What do you use? What's the best platform to use? Jamie and I both have Twitter accounts that we use primarily for professional reasons. That's not to say that we never post anything personal on those accounts, but we use Twitter as our primary means of professional networking. A lot of extension professionals are in the exact same boat. They have gone to Twitter as their primary tool for networking. So what that creates is this whole social network of folks who are only using Twitter for professional reasons. So it becomes a really great tool, in my perspective, for networking purposes. And you can kind of, again, because most people aren't posting a ton of personal stuff, you can kind of filter a lot of that out because it's just not there. Most people who don't use Twitter, I think, have a very biased opinion of what Twitter can offer. They think of it as just these little micro status updates or micro posts, and there's not a lot of substance in those. The reality is that people who are using Twitter, while there is a great deal of substance in what they're posting, generally they're probably posting links to content that they've developed or content that they found online that they think would be useful for their followers to at least see and recognize. The EdTech LN that Jamie co-leads with Paul Hill, they do Twitter chats, tweet ups every twice a month. So doesn't end up being every other Thursday, but twice a month. Mm-hmm. On Thursday afternoons. We just had a fantastic tweet up yesterday with our guest host, Kevin Folta from University of Florida. We had such a great conversation about how do you address controversial issues in extension, and what role does social media play in creating those communities of people who are, interested in science education and research-based information. So you can use Twitter even to reach out to clients too in doing things like tweet up. So Twitter is a really, really great tool, and it's often underutilized. I'm not going to talk about the specifics. We only have about 15 minutes left for the program, so I'm not going to talk about specifics on how to use Twitter, but if you're interested in professional networking and you want to reach out not only to people in Ohio, but people elsewhere in the nation who are working for extension in similar program areas, I think Twitter is probably going to be one of your best bets. The other thing that you can do is, we just talked about Facebook groups. Find some Facebook groups that you might be interested in joining, or consider creating one. And you might want to create a Facebook group for, let's say, FCS educators in Ohio as a means, and 4-H has one. They use it to post questions all the time about, hey, I need this form. Does anybody have one created so I don't have to recreate it? And people respond like instantly. Mm-hmm. They're using it for file sharing. They're using it for link sharing. It's just this informal place for people to post information back and forth.
And Danae, we do have a Facebook group page for FCS professionals. It's just not utilized as much as the 4-H page.
Okay. So yeah, find those groups, use them. For a personal hobby, I'm a photographer. I have found numerous photography groups on Facebook that I'm a part of that I post in. I can post my photos and get great critiques from people. It's a great resource, and I think it's often underutilized in terms of professional networking reasons. So find some Facebook groups, or consider talking to folks and maybe creating one of your own, and then inviting people to participate. With groups, I always recommend, if you're going to be an administrator for a group, have some guidelines for what's appropriate and not appropriate to post there. And I'm not talking like when people post things that are just inappropriate or offensive. I'm talking, in terms of work, what types of conversations do we want to be having on this group page, and what types of conversations would be best kept for other platforms. But think about using that. Maybe do a quick Facebook search, groups that are open, or even closed groups that you would have to request membership to. You can search those on Facebook and get a great list of what's already out there. So maybe just consider doing a search for like cooperative extension, 4-H, and see if you can find some groups that you might want to become a part of. You never know what you're going to find out there. So that's my recommendation for using social media for networking, professional networking. Are there any questions or comments that you guys have, or anything from Jamie that you want to share about that specifically?
I just had one example, but for the sake of time, we don't have to go over it. I was going to share Paul Hill's Twitter account, because he does a great job with using it to network with folks. So if you're tracking a hashtag, let's say that you search for co-op EXT, COOP EXT on Twitter, and you search for that hashtag, you find all these people that are using that hashtag. So let me share my screen real quick, and I'll share with you what I mean by that. Because, Twitter really is the best platform to use to network with coworkers, and not just share what you're doing, to actually engage with them. Because I think we are getting a lot better at sharing what we're doing out through Twitter and Facebook, but we could use a lot of help and a lot of work and encouragement with engaging with one another, and not just, spewing out what we're doing, trying to interact with one another too. So the hashtag that I was mentioning is COOPEXT. You can search for that in the search bar on Twitter. Even if you don't have a Twitter account, you can do that. And it will pull up everyone that's using that hashtag in Cooperative Extension across the nation. And this is a great way to see what other people are doing, and then take that extra step to interact with them. And that's how you're really going to network with them and grow relationships that could lead to collaboration opportunities in the future. And that's really what we've been doing with the EdTech LN, is pulling people together in Extension that are interested in technology integration in their programming, and making those connections, and getting that network started and interacting with each other. So the way to do that is, if you see, let's say that you see that Bob Birch just posted another Working Differently in Extension podcast, which he just did, and you watch it and you think it is so great, and you want to find out more about why he even does a podcast to begin with, or how did you even start this podcast? What kind of tools do you use, or whatever? And then you can just reply back to him, and it's that easy. And then you've made the connection and you've started that conversation. And so I just wanted to point that out, that it's a really simple way, other than having to go to wait until we go to a conference and see each other face to face, to make those connections and start those partnerships and relationships. So I am done with that now.
Yeah, Twitter is a very powerful tool for networking purposes, and there's just so much bias against it that many people aren't using it, but I highly, highly recommend it. And speaking about Twitter being such a powerful tool, I do want to share one quick story. There are so many examples that I could have chosen, but an example of how what you post on your personal social media accounts can really affect you as a professional. And this all comes down to what we call, Florian asked about a link. Florian, what are you looking for a link for specifically? Jamie, if you can follow up with him as I...
Okay.
Oh, LinkedIn. LinkedIn as a tool. LinkedIn is another really great tool. It's not one that I have used personally. I used to have an account that I used when I was in college for networking, and I never got anything out of it, so I ended up deleting it. And now all of a sudden, after I deleted it, everybody's like, use LinkedIn because you can blog. Using LinkedIn, you can create really great professional blogs on LinkedIn and get that out. It's a really, really great tool. And there are numerous Extension professionals using LinkedIn for professional reasons. Jamie, I don't think you use it, right?
I'm not very active on LinkedIn. I keep my profile updated with the work that I do. But I do know that there are some people that are using the article feature to do mini blogs and post that out. Here at Ohio State, we have the u.osu.edu platform, and we really encourage using that because it's branded well and it's just simple and easy to get set up and to use. But if you're active on LinkedIn and you really feel like you've got an audience on there that you can engage with, whether it's colleagues, clientele, or both, then yeah, we encourage testing it out and trying it out. It's not a platform that we focus on specifically when we do trainings and one-on-one consultations with everyone trying to get set up. Just because we feel like extension audiences are probably going to be more so in another environment like Facebook, even Snapchat, depending on the age of your audience. So that's why we don't mention it a whole lot, but there are definitely people there and using it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for the last few minutes here, we just wanted to talk about the importance of using social media responsibly, even as you're using your personal accounts. A lot of people will say things like what happens on the internet stays on the internet, right? Nothing's ever deleted. And that can be really, really true. And even if you think, well, I'm protecting myself because I'm sharing my personal opinions on my personal platform, so they surely they can't affect my professional work, can they? I just want to share one example of they can affect your personal work. And we have numerous examples of how that happens. So the one that I want to share is the story of Justine Sacco. And you guys may have seen this before. It was sort of big news when it happened. Justine was flying from, I think, New York to South Africa. I thought it was London to South Africa. So New York to South Africa during the holidays in 2013. She was posting a lot of tweets on her Twitter account. She had about 170 followers at the time. So not too many followers. It was her personal account. And she was posting a lot of sort of, joking tweets about people making fun of certain groups. And, she said something about bad teeth and she was going back to London. So, some very kind of stereotypical things about certain groups of people. Then she posted this tweet. She was getting on an 11-hour flight to South Africa. And just before she boarded that flight, she posts, "I'm going to Africa. I hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding. I'm white." I don't know what in her mind made her think that was an okay thing to post. Her profile, even though she only had 170 followers, her profile was public, so anybody could see the content that she posted. So she boarded her 11-hour flight, had no idea that her tweet became the number one trending tweet on Twitter. People created the hashtag "Has Justine Landed Yet?" and that started trending worldwide. People were following this story like for 11 hours. They were like, "Oh my gosh, like she is going to get off that flight. She's going to turn on her phone and like the world, like her world is going to end." And that's pretty much exactly what happened. Somebody actually went to the airport and they took a picture of her as she came off of her plane. They tweeted that picture out and said, "Justine landed." And, the whole world at this point is following this story unfolding in real time. She got fired from her job almost immediately. And she has sort of been set up as this example of what not to do on social media. Even if you think that you're posting something on your personal account, it can really come back to bite you. So you have to be incredibly careful about how you use social media, both personally and professionally. We talk about brand identity a lot. You may have heard personal brand or brand identity. What we mean by this is it's just how you present yourself in an online space. Everything that you put out there, just like if you go to a conference and you're presenting yourself in real life to people, you're creating an image for yourself in front of those people. It works the exact same way in your online spaces. It's just your online space. And you have a lot more platforms that you can be posting information on. And everything that you post online together, whether it's personal or professional, that all becomes part of your personal brand. And you have to make sure that the image that you're presenting is appropriate, it's professional, it's something that somebody who might want to make a contact with you for professional reasons is going to look at your brand identity and say, yeah, that's a person I would want to work with, or that's a person I would want to give $100,000 grant to because they seem like a good person. I'm trying to think if I had any other specific things I wanted to share about this. We wanted to talk a little bit about actual branding, like OSU branding and when to use OSU branding. You'll notice Jamie and I's Twitter accounts, we both have our profile image professionally branded with OSU. We have the block O bug is what they call it. So there's a little block O on our profile. That lets people know that we are using Twitter professionally. We are representing Ohio State University. That's not to say that we don't, occasionally post personal stuff. I would have no problem, posting a photo of my cat just to say, hey, like, here's my cute cat, for some reason. But I'm not going to post all photos of my cats because that doesn't present a very professional image to those that are following me for professional reasons. But you can still blend some of that personal life with your professional life because it creates this whole person image and not just this work person image for you. We've posted some information a while ago, I think in the spring, about how to brand your social media accounts, how to use that Blocko bug. If you happen to have like a professional account that you are using for, let's say you have a Facebook page for your work, that should be branded with the OSU stuff. We still notice a lot of pages that are not properly branded, unfortunately. If you are using let's say you have a Facebook profile that's just for professional reasons, you could brand that with the OSU Blocko bug as well. Jane just asked, you gave me an idea. I wonder if we should have a 4-H project on creating a personal brand. That would be a great idea, Jane, especially for youth. A lot of our youth, they tend to be the ones that post stuff on social media that's not always appropriate. There's always stories of teenagers, especially, and young adults posting stuff that they think is just funny and snarky information on Facebook. And that stuff never goes away. And that can make them unhireable in some people's eyes. More and more employers are looking to social media accounts to get a picture of what a candidate looks like, what their personal life is like, and whether they would be a good fit for that place of employment. So you have to consider that, and start by doing a Google search of your name and seeing what shows up. I'm lucky because my name is somewhat rare. So when I Google search Danae Wolf, it's mostly stuff that I have posted. And you'll see that I've posted photography posts for different national photography blogs. You'll see that I have a ton of insect photos out there. You start to create this picture of me that you might not know from knowing me as an OSU employee. And that's important to know what people are seeing about you and what that image online says about you. So start there. And hopefully you have an appropriate professional brand identity out there online. Jamie, do you have any final words? We covered a lot of information today.
Yeah, I was going to Google Daphne Richards from Texas A&M and see what her brand looks like, because I think she does a great job of projecting the image on social media and online that she wants everyone to see, and doing a good job of forming that personal brand, which is, hi, I'm Daphne. I'm a fun-loving horticulturalist, and I have a lot of wiener dogs, or I have a wiener dog, and I love my wiener dog. So let me share my screen here, so you can see Daphne's results here. So I Googled Daphne. If you ever get the chance to work with Daphne, you need to jump on it, because she is just so much fun to work with. And like I said, she does a great job in projecting this personal brand and this image. And to help her do that, she goes on frequent radio shows and TV shows in Austin, where she's located in Texas. And that helps her, it really does help her form this identity and share that identity online. She's also a good example of someone that's using Facebook really well by having 2 different accounts. So she not only has, let me switch over real quickly here. She not only has her personal page, but she also has a page that is horticulturalist Daphne Richards, and you can like her page, and she shares just work-related stuff most of the time, but you'll also see her Augie dog, which is her little wiener dog that she has. You'll also see him show up from time to time too. But she definitely projects this image of, I am a fun-loving person. I love horticulture. I love working with people. And you just automatically get that the minute you see anything from her. And let me go back to her. There's her little Augie. Like the cutest thing ever. And there's, when she was on one of the TV shows, she likes to take pictures from behind the scenes and share behind the scenes photos when she's shooting her shows. She started playing Pokemon Go and experimenting with that in gardens and things. So she was posting and sharing that while she was doing that on her page. So here's her her Google search results. So you can see that it all comes up, Twitter, Facebook, Ask an Expert on e-extension, and then all of this horticulture information, master gardener work. So you can that she's active on social media, and you can automatically see what she's interested in. And that's what you want to have come up when somebody's Googling you. You want to have those results that come up that you want people to see. And she's in my Google contacts, so you can see her phone number too. Google just knows everything that we want without us even knowing what we need. So that's just a good example of someone that has like a great personal brand and is communicating it very well, and also using that professional page versus a personal page. Even though she does have a lot of friends on Facebook that are coworkers and colleagues, she also has this separate page and has over 1,000 people that follow and like her page. So she's doing a great job of communicating what she does and sharing the work that she does. I think we are out of time today.
Yes, it's just after 11. If you guys have any questions or comments, Jamie and I will be on for a few minutes. Thank you everybody for coming on today with us. Hopefully you learned something new about, sort of that balance between your personal and professional social media identities. Jamie and I are always welcoming questions from you guys. That this is our job, is to help you navigate sort of this world of tech use and social media. So let us know what questions you have.
And this is definitely an area that Roger is interested in training everyone on is, how do we choose using those personal accounts versus professional? And, the answer is there really isn't a perfect answer. It depends on what you're comfortable with. More and more of the clientele, as we get younger and younger clientele coming into the organization and engaging with us, are going to expect that blend. And I think good examples in the organization who do this are Lisa McCutcheon, Jamie Delafield. Erin, you have that blend because you're in a small community. So if you can use your personal accounts and interact with people from all sides, so clients, coworkers, friends, and family, and do a good job at it, I think that's going to become more and more expected as our clientele changes. But if you're not comfortable with that, then definitely, try to separate those out. Come to us if you want some more examples other than, like Daphne and some of the others that I shared that are separating those out, and we can help you. But it is something that's tricky, and it's a personal decision. But we also have to make sure that as extension professionals, we're projecting this professional, somewhat censored image while still having some kind of a personality, so that we can grow those relationships and build trust with the people we're trying to engage with. So
I would say one thing on that too is to make sure that you have your tags. If you're on like Facebook, make sure you have it set so other people, you have to approve when someone tags you, because otherwise you get I find a lot of people try to tag me on things, and they may not be things that I want to be tagged on.
that's a great point, Erin, because sometimes if someone has their account hacked into, you can definitely have an issue with that. If there's spam or something that's tagging you on it, and it's something very inappropriate. I have had that happen to me too. So that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can turn that setting on someplace in your privacy settings. Just say that you have to approve all of the people who try to tag you and things before it actually goes public. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today.
Yeah, those of you that hadn't really experienced Zoom before, this is a meeting format in Zoom rather than a webinar format. So did you like it this way? I know a lot of people tended to use the chat box rather than talk, but did you like it? Was it a good experience? Do you like this better than Connect?
Julie said yes. Love it.
Great.
Good. We are testing this at the college level, and we're very excited about the possibility of us adopting this as an alternative to Carmen Connect. People love it. I love it. Jamie loves it. It's just great.
So much easier. We did have some speaker and audio issues right at the very beginning, but it's usually, in my experience, way less common to have that happen in Zoom than we do with Connect. So.
Yeah, and Florian says, I'm not sure I like looking at myself the whole time. That takes getting used to, because I've always felt that way too. I hate looking at myself. But for a meeting format, it works better than having to travel 2 or 3 hours to an in-person meeting location. You can sit here and it looks like you're in an in-person meeting. Everybody's here. You can see their faces. So it seems like you're more in an in-person format. The webinars, you do not see that webcam video feed from everybody.
Yeah. It does take some getting used to. I've gotten used to it over the last 6 months or so with the extension work. But yeah, it's different. It's different at the beginning.
Yeah.
Can't wear slippers and PJ pants to all your meetings anymore. I mean, I guess I could, but when you're on video, it's more difficult.
Yeah.
I'm on a multi-state grant, and we've been using Zoom, so connecting with Kansas and South Dakota, and it really does work well. You feel more connected, I think, when you see the other folks sitting there and chatting and talking. So